I am going to demonstrate how to detonate a bomb throughout the course of this video. When most people think of people who go hunting, Florida is hardly the first place that springs to mind. People frequently think of Texas or Alabama, but I believe that Florida, with its wide swamps, towering palm trees, and untamed vegetation, is a paradise for hunters who enjoy the harshness and drama that Florida has to offer. Particularly when you are seated in a buggy, you will get the impression that all of the hunting adventures are within your reach. As can be seen, this automobile does not have any doors. A robust steel frame, massive spiked wheels, and a gun mount that is situated in front of the handlebars are the only components that make up its straightforward design. The only sounds that could be heard were the buzzing of insects and the continuous sound of the engine below. The surrounding area was completely silent. Just then, the sound of dogs barking could be heard everywhere. There was a massive wild boar that was encircled by a band of dogs and was located a few dozen meters distant from us. Immediately, when the buggy came to a stop, I carefully positioned myself to engage in combat. A deafening explosion ripped through the stillness of the air. There was a brief hesitation before the wild boar gave out and fell to the ground. This wild boar, which was of a modest size, managed to become our very first trophy. After that, we proceeded further into the swamp. It was completely overrun with low plants and palm trees that had grown wild. A slow speed was not possible for the buggy. I was able to observe each and every movement of the hounds after switching to the slow mode. Out of nowhere, a large number of wild boars, each of which was enormous, emerged from the bushes. At the same time, we opened fire without taking any further action. It is possible that they were startled by the sound of the engine, since they raced extremely quickly and gradually separated from one another, making their way in different directions. The terrain was flat and adjacent to the grazing pasture, which was where wild boars frequently concentrated because there was an abundance of food. I resumed my journey south when I reached this point. We could feel the cool wind of summer blowing through the air at this moment, and the car was moving at a slow pace. In the vicinity of the forest's border, we came across a herd of wild boars who were drinking at a little water hole. We got out of the car and proceeded to a clearing that was approximately 50 meters away from the water hole without announcing our presence to the herd. It was a calm and serene atmosphere throughout. Our target was the herd of pigs, specifically the ones that were the largest. Following the explosion, the wild boar that was the largest fell to the ground and dispersed. Following the collection of the wild boars that had been shot, we proceeded to continue our journey on the buggy. The afternoon had already arrived. In addition, our dogs came across the wild boar and made an attempt to give chase to it. One of our pals did not resort to the use of a firearm in order to bring down the wild boar this time. The audacious idea of capturing the wild boar with his hands was one that he presented to himself. Yes, it is possible that you will have a difficult time locating this site. Yet, in certain marshes in Florida, it is not an uncommon sight. Following an exciting session in which we caught wild boars using only our bare hands, we continued to move around on the buggies and look for wild boars. Hunting wild hogs in Florida is not for those who are easily discouraged due to the heat, the insects, the dirt, and the possibility of being attacked by a pig. But every journey is a test of one's mettle, a competition between the bravery of humans and the unbridled knowledge of nature. I drove back, my face and hands scorched, my shirt covered in dust and perspiration, the scratches from the bushes, and the stinging mosquito bites, but it was all worth it. I had a good time. I set the pistol down, cleaned the barrel, and then sat for a while in the middle of the field, where the heat was scorching, yet I was perfectly content. The time we spent hunting in the marsh has now come to an important conclusion. Your thoughts on the video that was released today? In order to let us know, please leave your comments below. In order to stay up to date with the most recent notifications, don't forget to like and subscribe. Therefore, as the population of wild boars develops at an uncontrollable rate, the line that separates humans and nature begins to blur. Damaged gardens, ruined fields, and even livestock that is no longer safe in its enclosures as a result of the damage. Wild boars are no longer considered to be merely prey in many regions. Rather, they have evolved into invasive dangers. Exactly for this reason, we are gathered here in these fields this evening. Not only is hunting wild boars an exciting hobby or a time-honored tradition for hunters with years of experience, but it is also an essential method for regulating the number of wild boars in the wild. At 10 o'clock in the evening, we set out. Only a sliver of moonlight was sufficient to illuminate the path we were traveling. Along the edge of the woodland, where there were still fresh traces of wild boars visible, our team divided into two groups and moved along the pathway. As they came to a stop close to an open area, the sound of rustling in the bushes indicated that something was coming closer. As the thermoscope scanned the region, a herd of wild boars consisting of approximately 10 individuals emerged. While simultaneously firing, the hunting rifles did not show any signs of hesitancy. The first round was successful because it resulted in the arrival of 2 boars in the field. 2 more individuals made an attempt to flee, but they were unable to avoid their fate. It was around 30 minutes later that a second group of wild boars emerged. As we moved carefully, we were aware of the threat that was waiting for us. As soon as we were within range, the signal was issued. We advanced in a stealthy manner. Silence was broken by the sound of gunfire. The wild boars became frightened and dispersed. We made the most of the chance by concentrating on those individuals who had drifted away from the group. Once we had them under control, we moved quickly to locate those individuals who had escaped. Because they were equipped with thermo-hunting scopes, there was no way to conceal them. Not even the footless shrubs could do it. A perilous hunt, but this was just the beginning of the adventure. In the direction of a rice field, which is a region where wild boars usually forage for leftover grains, we continued forward. There were only a few seconds left for us to respond as the herd emerged. Once the first boar heard the gunshots, it immediately fell to the ground. On the other hand, there was no time to wait because everyone else was dashed for safety. The optics were able to pick up glimpses of shadowy figures. Once again, a shot well taken. A single shot results in a single death. In a matter of moments, our prize was immobile and lying in front of us. There was a huge concentration of wild boars in this area, which made it simple to recognize them. While we were hidden in our location, we leveled our weapons and waited for the next opportunity to strike. At the precise moment, we let off a barrage of shots using pinpoint accuracy to hit the targets that were most important. Following the fall of the alpha boar, the other boars went into a frenzy. However, before they could disperse, another volley of fire ensured that 3 to 4 more men were eliminated from the fight. Our ambush persisted, and we were able to eliminate several more of them with rapid and deadly attacks. There is no doubt that this was without a doubt one of the most exhilarating night hunts that we had ever participated in. After some time had passed, yet another herd of wild boar materialized, warily approaching the area. The team began firing when they were within range of the target. We were taken down immediately, and even though the others attempted to flee, they were all brought down in a short amount of time as well. An increasing number of wild boars emerged as the night progressed. We were resolute in our efforts to ensure that not a single target was able to evade our grasp. Within the span of a minute and a half, 5 wild boars had been killed. At this point, it was almost 4 in the morning, and the last encounter took place in a field that was open air and close to a residential area. The wild boars were foraging in great numbers like a herd. The repercussions could be catastrophic if they are allowed to continue unchecked. Instead of wasting any time, we immediately went into action and eliminated our targets. The remaining boars became aware of the threat and responded by dispersing the panic. However, in the wild, survival is more likely to be won by those who are quick. It was just as the boar was attempting to adjust its direction that it was struck down. At long last, when the dust began to settle, the night went back to its eerie calm. Our haul was dissected by us. This had been a quest that had been faultless, quick, and efficient, and it had been extremely successful. We were in a region in East Texas, and we were trying to hunt down a herd of dozens of wild pigs that had destroyed more than 2 acres of crops in continuous succession. For the past half a month, we had been participating in this hunting activity, and our hunting party consisted entirely of farmers, some of whom had a significant amount of hunting expertise. We are not going to go out and look for wild boars today. Rather, we are going to capture them and kill them. We have prepared bait in the event that wild boars make an appearance at the edge of the forest, which is directly adjacent to the farm, in order to feed and invade the fields. Between the boundary of the woodland and the fields, long lines of corn kernels that have been blended with honey are poured. As Mike, an experienced hunter, stated, they are really drawn to this scent, particularly at night. However, if you set them in the appropriate spot, you can see them around 5 o'clock in the evening. He also mentioned that this hunting activity demands a great deal of patience because we are not looking for wild boars, but rather waiting for wild boars to emerge. He noted that this is the challenge that we face. After we had finished preparing everything, we went out and toured the hunting grounds to look for any signs of wild boar involvement. It was vital to be aware of the surroundings and to be prepared for numerous animals to come at the same time because they have a tendency to form groups and travel together. Following the completion of all preparations, we took up position. Approximately 40 meters away from the cornfield, I was positioned in a wooden watchtower that was approximately 3 meters high. I was close enough to the cornfield to fire properly, but I was also far enough away to avoid being discovered. Wind blew softly across the meadows as it passed by. It was almost unbearable for me to take a breath. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally understood that hunting wild boar was not like watching an action movie. During the course of the psychological conflict, the patient emerged victorious. The maize bran was sniffed by a couple wild boars after they had been present for approximately an hour. By the time they had begun eating, I had already pulled the trigger. The gunfire was so loud that it reverberated throughout the entire sky. The first boar was instantly knocked to the ground. As swiftly as they could, the other wild boars fled. After leaving the tower, I walked out with my heart still beating rapidly. Observing the pig be brought down made me feel more content than I ever had before. Because we had baits placed in the traps, the wild boars were unable to resist catching them. Despite the fact that they were unaware that a wild boar had been slaughtered there, some of them continued to show up after the event. Keeping a close eye on the wild boars, I was searching for the ideal position between them. We waited for the moment when the animal came to a stop while the rifle and scope were in a perilous position. At this point, everyone held their breath in order to maintain the steady shot, and at the precise moment, we pulled the trigger. Immediately after the rifle shot reverberated throughout the area, the boar collapsed to the ground. This shot was used to kill the boar in a manner that was both speedy and humane. Undoubtedly, the hunt was not yet done, as an increasing number of wild boars emerged on the scene. We were able to accomplish our objective of hunting each wild boar with a single shot due to the fact that our sights were ready. Mike frequently reminds us that whenever we go on a hunt for wild boars, we should always make sure to shoot them from the head or the lungs. This will assist in preserving bullets and ensure that the wild boar is killed as quickly as possible, thereby reducing the amount of time it is forced to endure pain. The regard that long-time hunters feel for their prey is presumably something that comes naturally to them. Furthermore, if you do not shoot precisely, the wild boar may escape, and this will almost certainly result in a greater number of them returning to the property. Therefore, if you also hunt wild boar or other animals, you need to make sure that you aim correctly before you fire your weapon. During the afternoon, we arrived to the wild boar trap that was located in the timber. This region had a greater number of wild boars and trees than the others. We also managed to kill a couple wild boars in this area. Following the arrival of these wild boars at the gathering spot, we immediately began the process of preparing their meat. During this process, the internal organs are removed in order to prevent the food from going bad and to make it more convenient to carry. In order to preserve the quality of the meat, it is imperative that this process be completed as rapidly as possible. In order to extract the organs and make the necessary incisions, we make use of a hunting knife that is sharp. We have to be careful not to puncture the stomach or the intestines because doing so could cause the meat to become spoiled. As a result of its lower fat content and enhanced flavor compared to domestic boar, wild boar meat is a popular choice among hunting associations. In order to facilitate the process of storing and preparing the meat at a later time, it is meticulously sliced into various pieces, including as ribs, shoulders, loins, and hands. For the purpose of preservation, we smoke a portion of the meat, while the remaining portion is packaged for long-term storage. It is clear that we were able to effectively finish the hunt by adhering to specified strategies and making cautious preparations. In addition, we are certain that you will achieve success if you possess the necessary talents and make strategies. On the other hand, the conflict with wild pigs is a war that very few people see, and it is hidden behind the tranquil exterior. There has been a long history of feral pigs being a dangerous and invasive species. They have been known to ruin crops, dig up soil, and attack hunters when they are cornered. Over the course of the past few years, I have acquired the skills necessary to become a hunter, not because I have a passion for the sport, but because I do it for a living. Traps and firearms are also frequently used in the conflict. My selection was a corral trap, which is a circular trap with a trapdoor that is constructed from wire mesh panels that are around 1.5 meters in height. After that, we lured it inside with corn that had been seasoned with fat and wine, which wild boars are particularly fond of. They are unable to withstand the odor. We need to place the traps several days in advance so that the wild boars are not paying attention to them. This will allow us to successfully capture wild boars. It is necessary to install surveillance cameras in order to record the amount of time that wild boars are active in order to successfully capture them. Once you have approached the corn bait enough times without coming across any wild boars, other wild boars will appear. As a result of the camera, we are aware of the time as well as the number of wild boars that have entered the trap. The trap can be triggered, and the prey can be captured with the use of a remote control. In the wee hours of the morning, we made our way to the trap location in order to collect wild boars. Even though we were aware in advance that there were a great number of wild boars in the trap, we nonetheless experienced apprehension when we were confronted by them. While we were getting closer to the trap, the wild boars became agitated and began to rush at the bars, grunting and attempting to break through the cage and escape. We refrained from shooting them right away, instead taking a moment to look about and make certain that the wild boars did not stumble into the trap. We took aim and killed each wild boar when we determined that there was no threat in the area. The wild boar was destroyed in a short amount of time as a result of each accurate shot that was taken. We made it a moral norm not to allow people to endure their suffering for an extended period of time. To produce a shot that was both swift and clean, we needed to aim precisely at the chest and the head of the target. Immediately following the slaughter of these wild boars, we placed them aboard the truck. Because of the weight of the wild boars, my entire body was on the verge of swaying. In order to make the most of these wild boars, they would be utilized in various ways. No resources would be thrown away. Following the retrieval of the wild boars from the traps, we made our way back to the guardhouse located on the southern side, which was situated at the intersection of the barley fields and the wild woods. In order to obtain water, the pigs would frequently come out here at the middle of the day.